Hello, my friends. Our topic is the symmetry of prime numbers and astrology. So this will be interesting for people interested in astrology and also for people interested in mathematics and specifically prime numbers. I'm going to build upon some ideas I've shared in the past with lots of new ideas that give insights into how prime numbers are organized and the relationship of these ideas to astrology. A number of ways that they're related to ideas in astrology. I have a lot of material to cover. This will probably be more than one video. I generally make the videos about a half hour long, so it may be a series of 2 or 3 videos. Okay, I'm going to build this up from the ground up. Prime numbers. What are the first prime numbers? The first prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 23, and 29. I have 1 here, but technically speaking, 1 is not a prime number. 1 has some unique characteristics and generally regarded as not being a prime number. However, it does have some qualities of a prime number. There are not 2 other numbers that multiply together to equal it. So anyway, 1 is a little bit peculiar. Technically speaking, it's not a prime number. If you look at the prime numbers up to the number 30, you'll see these 6 prime numbers symmetrical around 15. If you subtract 2 and add 2 to 15, you get 13 and 17 primes. Subtract 4 and add 4, prime numbers 11 and 19. Subtract 8 and add 8, prime numbers 7 and 23. Those are all the prime numbers between 7 and 23, symmetrical around 15. So there is this symmetry. Is this just peculiar to these first few numbers? What's going on here? We're going to investigate this. We're going to uncover a lot of fascinating things about the way prime numbers are organized. Also, as you increase your numbers, you get fewer and fewer primes. So as you go to higher and higher numbers, they're more spread out. And we see that already in the first 30 numbers. The midpoint of 30, of course, is 15, and there are more prime numbers to the left, lower than to the right. So basically what's happening is you have a perfect kind of symmetry with some additional numbers on the left that do not fit into the pattern. So this symmetry is quite striking. It's really stunning. Now, let's think about this. Okay, so there's this symmetry, or there appears to be some kind of symmetry in prime numbers. Are we interested in this? Well, prime numbers are fundamental. A lot of mathematicians consider prime numbers to be building blocks of all of numbers, similar to elements in chemistry, like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. These are the building blocks that are fundamental. What about symmetry? Is it fundamental? Yes. In many fields like quantum theory, symmetry is vitally important. That prime numbers form these symmetrical patterns is putting 2 fundamental things together. So it's reasonable to suspect that the symmetry of prime numbers could have locked within it some very interesting properties. Science is constantly evolving, constantly discovering. So what can we make out of these symmetries and prime numbers? Maybe there's more hidden gems in these symmetries. And that's what I'm going to show you, what these hidden gems are. Now, we're noticing a symmetry around 15. Are there other symmetrical patterns? What if we go beyond 30? I'm just putting out the first few here. What if we go higher? I'm going to go up to 360 and then later up to 720. In other words, what are the greatest symmetry of prime numbers? If we go up to 360, is 15 the central one? Are there other ones? I wrote a little software program to tell us, and we're going to see. And it opens up all kinds of doors and relationships to ancient ideas in mathematics and astrology and all kinds of stuff. Also, we can wonder if these prime numbers that are pairs, like 13 and 17, 11 and 19, Maybe they have some relationship to each other. That's another possibility. Let's dig deeper into these symmetries of prime numbers. Let's go above 30 and see what other symmetries appear. So on the next slides, I'm going to go up to 360. Why 360? It's a convenient number. It's a very composite number, all kinds of primes multiplied together to equal 360. 360 is traditionally what's used for the number of degrees in a circle. Let's use 360. So we've already seen what happens between 0 and 30, where 15 is the symmetry point, the one and only, it's the primary symmetry point. Now let's see what happens when we go up to 360. And what I'm going to show you is how many symmetry points. I just wrote a little program that looks before and after every prime number up to 360 and counts how many symmetry points there are. Just like here with 15, we have 3 symmetry points, 3 pairs, 13 and 17, 11 and 19, 7 and 23. However, if we include 1, we have 4 pairs. So what I'm going to do on the next slides is I'm going to do it with 1 not included, which is the strict definition of primes, and then I will include 1. It only makes a very slight difference. But just to do this thoroughly and technically, correct, leave out 1, but also include it, just to make sure there's no big difference, and there is not a big difference. Okay, so I want to do this thoroughly, comprehensively, and see what the heck is going on with these symmetries and prime numbers. So, to make this very clear, let's take a point. For example, let's take 30 degrees. Just as an example, I've got 360. I'm randomly selecting the number 30. Now in astrology, 30 is the beginning of Taurus, because in astrology they divide the circle into 12 pieces of 30. If you're not interested in astrology, you can ignore that zodiac sign thing and just note that I'm looking at symmetries around 30. What are the prime number pairs that are symmetrical around 30? Well, 29 and 31. There, you can look up a list of prime numbers. They are prime. 23 and 37. So 23 and 37 is 30 minus 7, 30 plus 7, 19 and 41, 17 and 43, etc. And I've drawn a little arc to connect all of these. I stopped at 349 and 71. I could have continued all the way across. But to give you the idea, to make it absolutely clear what we're talking about, this is what I'm talking about. These symmetries, whenever the two numbers on either side of a number between 0 and 360, when both of them are prime, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, also note that if a pair of numbers like 29 and 31 is symmetrical around 30, it's also symmetrical around the opposite point. 30 plus 180 is 210. So you have an axis here. So whatever number of symmetries we have for one end of the axis, we have for the other end. I mean, obviously, the distance from 210, which is up here, to 29 is the same as the distance to 31. So we're actually looking at which axes, which of these opposite points have the most symmetries. It's going to lead to all kinds of interesting things. Now, what point from 0 to 360 has the most symmetries? It's the one I just showed you. I didn't pick 0 Taurus and 0 Scorpio randomly. It is the one that has the most symmetries. I have this little program, just counted them up, and that's where they are. So it's not 15 degrees. We saw those symmetries at 15 degrees. Let's go back to it. All these symmetries around 15, but actually the 30 and 210 has more. Also, let me go back and note something. When we talk about the symmetries, we're going below 0 because we're on a circle. So this is what's called in mathematics a modulus function. It's a modulus 360 function. I just want to make that clear. So we have things like 359 and 61, or 353 and 67, 349 and 71, and so on. So this is something mathematicians haven't looked at a lot as far as I'm aware, because, why do this modulus 360? But for people who deal with circles a lot and what goes on in astrology, it becomes interesting to see how the symmetries happen in a circle. But I want to just emphasize that if we were not in a circle, this, for example, 349 is actually minus 11, right? It's minus 11 and 71. But in the circle, it becomes 349 and 71. Okay, so these are symmetries in a circle. I just want to emphasize that. And there they are. You can pause this, you can look at this, you can look at a list of prime numbers, you can verify that there's no bug in the software. These are the pairs, 197 and 223, etc. And so, for example, if we take 61 and 359, this pair in the lower left corner, they are 31 degrees from 30. 31 degrees before and after. The 359 is 31 degrees before 30, and 61 is 31 degrees after 30. And 359 and 61 are both prime. And they're equidistant, of course, from the opposite point of 210 degrees. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Now, if we include the number 1, remember I said 1 is not prime, but, if we throw it in there, because it has a lot of properties of primes, we do end up with one more pair, because 59 is prime. 1 and 59 are equidistant from 30 and 210, and we would have one more. So sometimes when we include 1, we get one more pair. You can see why including 1 as prime doesn't make a lot of difference, because there are a lot of pairs of prime numbers surrounding any degree. So 0 Taurus and 0 Scorpio, that axis is the most symmetrical. This becomes very fascinating when you read ancient ideas where they emphasize 210. Why are they emphasizing 210? They don't tell us. Okay, and anyway, little preview to what we're going to be getting to. So here's the list. From the program I wrote, I extracted out the most common, the points with the most prime number symmetries, these pairs of prime numbers that are symmetrical around a number. And there's a 0 Taurus and Scorpio, number 1. It has the most pairs. And I don't have the number of pairs here, but it's the most. And also, if you're a member, a YouTube member, I have a membership program, it's $10 a month. The program that I use to generate all this is available to members if you wanted to run it. A programmer could recreate the software in any language, not extremely difficult. Okay, now, what comes in number 2? Where are these where are these points in the circle where all these pairs of primes occur? The next strongest are 3 tied for second place, 15 Aries Libra, 15 Cancer Capricorn, and 15 Leo Aquarius. Now, if you're not familiar with the astrology language, Cancer starts at 90, so it's actually 105, and 105 plus 8, 105 plus 180, the opposite point. Leo starts at 120, so it's actually 135 and 315. So you could convert this to degrees. I did it in astrological language. Just remember that Aries starts at, let's go back here. Aries is 0, Taurus starts at 30, Gemini starts at 60, Cancer at 90, Leo 120, and so on. Okay, so there they are. Now, what do we notice? Where are these primes? By the way, before I get into that, let me mention what's on these right three columns here. I totaled up what I call the main kinds of symmetry lines, and there are 24. By main, I mean 0 and 15. Most of the symmetry lines, where the greatest symmetry lines is usually, but not always, 0 and 15. Every 15 degrees around the circle are very strong symmetry points. And this is exactly what's going on. You have, in third place, 15 Gemini Sag and 15 Leo Aquarius. Fourth place, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tied. And then you have these oddballs that I put in pink highlight, which are not 0 and 15. So there are a few symmetry points, high symmetry, that are not 0 and 15. This is just the reality. You count them up, that's what you get. And to make sure I didn't miss any, I put a total here, and I should get 24, just to make sure I didn't miss any. So Taurus, Scorpio is 2. This is 1, 2, 3 times 2, 6. You add them up. There's the 24. By main, I mean there's 0 and 15. So what we learn is that the symmetry points are at every 15 degrees around the circle. We're going to learn a lot more about this, but so far, that's what we figured out. And there's 10 others. I sometimes call these the oddballs. 10 other points. Remember, these are pairs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs is 10 others. Now, if you include one, the order changes slightly. Like Cancer, Capricorn, and Virgo, Pisces have gone down 1, etc. So there's some slight moving around. Very little difference. Conclusions. Number 1, 0 Taurus Scorpio is number 1, the strongest symmetry point. Number 2, notice 15 degrees shows up in the next 5. 15, Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, Gemini, Sag, Leo, Aquarius, and one of the 15s ties for 4th place, and then you have the zeros. So 15 degrees showing up more as slightly higher symmetry points, with the exception of 0 Taurus Scorpio, which was the highest. Maybe it's just random, it's just an observation. And just another observation, 0 Aries Libra is kind of by itself at the bottom. It has a level of symmetry similar to the oddballs. In fact, if 0 Aries Libra was not here, we would have no oddballs. What I've done is I put the oddballs up until I got to all 24. So I'm just observing what's going on. Okay, little by little, we're going to find some interesting things. Now, what I do next is, instead of 360 points in the circle, let's put 720. In other words, every half degree. Instead of let's go back to our little, what do I want? This thing. Where I've done every degree, so I've got 360 degrees. Let's put 720 points every half degree and see how many symmetry points there are if we refine this down to more points. For those of you into astrology, in ancient Indian astrology, they divided zodiac signs into very tiny amounts. So there is an astrological heritage to this, and also mathematically, it becomes interesting to see what happens as we go to higher numbers, because there's nothing unique about 360. Let's double it and go to 720. What happens? Do the symmetry points change? And what we're going to see is this. In the left column, I have the pairs of symmetry around 30 degrees. In astrology, that's 0 Taurus. And I already showed this to you. 29:31, 23:37, 19:41, 17:43, 13:47, etc. I already showed these to you. Now, if we put 720 points we get a lot of the same pairs, but we also going to get the numbers above 360, of course. So 719 and 61 is an additional pair that we get if we go up to 720, because they're both prime numbers and they're both equidistant from 30. I'm just looking here at the symmetry points, the pairs of symmetry points to 30, just as an example. I could do this for all, I did do it for all 360, actually, and all 720 points. But just as an example of one of these points, here's what we get. And occasionally, the 353 and 67 has no equivalent pair in the 720 because it ends up not being prime. So these are the equivalent pair to these. These are the same distance. These are the same 31 degrees, for example, for 719 and 61 from the 30 degrees. So all I'm saying is this. If you got a little bit lost there, don't worry about it. All I'm saying is that if you go from 360 to 720, you're going to get more symmetry points. Some get added on if you get subtracted. In fact, here's the total. There are 28 pairs of symmetry points around 30 and 210 degrees. Astrology at 0 Taurus, 0 Scorpio. If you do 720 points, there are 41 pairs. So there tend to be more pairs. Okay. Now, here's the list of pairs if you do 720. Notice that with 720 points, 0 Scorpio is on top. And what happens when you use 720 points is you no longer have an axis because you're doing every half degree. So it splits apart. You can say it splits apart the axis. 0 Scorpio is now separate from 0 Taurus. And when you split 0 Scorpio from 0 Taurus, you're splitting the 210 and the 30 by using 720 points. It's the Scorpio. That's the huge symmetry point. In fact, the Taurus is all the way down here, tied at number 7. It's pretty far down the list. So when we do these symmetry points every half degree, 0 Scorpio is special. 0 Scorpio is very special. It is the point around the circle where there's all this symmetry of the fundamental building blocks of numbers. And we're using numbers in astrology by the degrees. It ends up that 0 Scorpio plays a very important part in astrology, as we will see. Okay, and for those of you just interested in the mathematics, it's interesting. 210 is the strongest symmetry point, followed by 0 Gemini, which equals 60, 15 Aquarius, which equals 315, Cancer, 15 Cancer, which is 105, and 15 Virgo, which is 165. These points, if I only look at the degree points, I'm not doing symmetries around the half degree points. There may be half degree points that have symmetries. I have not looked at that. But if I just look at the 360 degree points and I look at all the symmetries around them up to 720, these are the big ones. 0 Scorpio, 0 Gemini, 15 Aquarius, 15 Cancer, 15 Virgo, and then we start getting ties. We have now 5 oddballs. 9 Taurus, that's 39 degrees. 12 Cancer, 102 degrees. These oddballs are in there. And there are only 5. With the 360 degrees, we had 10. So, and here's what happens if you include 1. Things go up and down 1, or they're the same. It really makes no significant difference whether you consider 1 to be prime or not. 3 conclusions at the bottom of the slide. 0 Scorpio numero uno. It's the big guy. It's where the symmetry happens. Zero Taurus is no longer a high point of symmetry if we go up to 720 and look at more and more symmetries around these 360 points. When we did 360 points, 15 degrees came out on top. You might remember that. A lot of 15 degrees. Now it's pretty evenly distributed. You got 2 zeros, 3 15s, zeros and 15s. It's not as obvious. I'm just making an observation. It may be that there was just a random kind of thing. So what we're concluding is that every 15 degrees is a high symmetry point, and maybe there's some significance to the exact order, and we're going to see that there is, that there's good reason to believe that there is, that zero Scorpio, it's not just some random thing. Zero Scorpio really is the highest symmetry point, 210 degrees. So if you're into just the mathematics, 210 is a highly symmetrical point for prime numbers in a modulus 360, put around a circle. That's key. For the mathematicians, I want to make this point clear. 210 is a powerful, it is the strongest prime number symmetry point of the 360 numbers when you place it around a circle. And so far, that's true if I do prime numbers up to 360 and up to 720. You can keep going, but so far, 210 is a highly symmetrical point. By the way, Aries Libra, which was very, very low before, is the zero Aries Libra. Now we have zero Aries tied for number 9, zero Libra tied in number 10. They're two lower. They're still kind of low, but they're not conspicuously low. So that disappears. What remains when we go to 720 is the zero Scorpio at the top and a clear top 5 with no ties. That's the big difference. Now it starts to get interesting when we look at those big 5. So why is zero Scorpio the strongest? And why is zero Gemini next? And then 15 Aquarius, etc.? I'm going to answer those questions. There's a reason for it. We can understand why this is happening, and that's what I'm going to show you next. So what I've done here is I've put around the circle the top 5, because when we go back again, the top 5 have no ties. So I just want to take, this is clearly number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I just took those because they're clear and straightforward, the top 5. Then you start getting tied for 6th place, etc. Anyway, I took the top 5. So there's number 1, 210 degrees. So we start from 0 and we go around. We're going counterclockwise in this case, doesn't matter, but I happen to be going counterclockwise, 210. Now, the second point, remember what's the second point? 0 Gemini, which equals 60. So here's 1, here's 2 at 60. 3 is up here, and then 4, and then 5. I made these lines, these designations, thick for the first ones to help you follow and see it. So it's going from here to 10, or I'll use the astrology thing, 0 Scorpio to 0 Gemini, up here to 15 Aquarius, down near the bottom to 15 Cancer, and over to the right to 15 Virgo. It looks kind of random, but it's not random. Here's what's happening. We start at 0, we go 210. Let's add 210. 210 plus 210 is 420. So we go around the circle 360, we end up here. So this number 2 is adding 210 again. Wow, 210 is the big number. You go 210, you go 210 again. So this 210 is like a huge symmetry thing. Second biggest symmetry point is 210 plus 210. Now we go back up here to 315. Well, this 60 minus 105 equals the 315. We go back 1/2 of 210. What's happening is you jump by 210 or half of 210, which is 105, or 210 times 2. So jumping by 210, 105, or 420 creates your symmetry points. Let me say that again. Every 210 degrees, or half of that, add 105 or subtract. They can go in either direction. So the formula is add or subtract 210, add or subtract 210 divided by 2, or add or subtract 210 times 2. So following those rules, first number is 210, we add 210. We subtract 105, that's half of the 210. Then to get to number 4, we have subtracted 210. We've gone from here back 210. And to get to the fifth and last one of the top 5, we add 420, 210 plus 210, which is 60, and there we are. So the symmetries around the degrees of a circle are in multiples of 210, and on the next slide I've written it down. Cycles of 210, or 210 divided by 2, or 210 times 2, going either clockwise or counterclockwise. We can't predict whether you're going to add 210 or half of 210 or 210 times 2, and we can't predict whether you're going to go clockwise or counterclockwise, but those are the possibilities for jumping to the next symmetry point. So it's 210 and half of 210 and twice 210 that define these symmetry points. And it starts very simply at 210. Now, why 210? Okay. Let me answer this question, and then we'll stop this and make it part 1, and then we'll go on to part 2. Why 210? Because, well, I'm going to give you a preview. I'll go over this again. It has to do with the rhythm of prime numbers. 2 times 3, 2 times 3 times 5, 2 times 3 times 5 times 7. I went over that very quickly, but for those of you mathematicians, you can follow that. For those of you who are not trained in prime numbers, that went by too quickly. Let's stop here. And in part 2, I'm going to start right here. Why is 210 so important? And then we'll start to see how it connects with ideas in ancient ideas going back thousands of years in astrology, emphasizing 210. Very curious, and it is the symmetry point. Okay, let's stop here. I'll continue with this slide in part 2. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.